Welcome to Asia Society Hong Kong Centre's Chinese New Year celebration program. Today we're hearing from author and friend of Asia Society, Sarah Brennan, who will be reading her tale about the lovely Oswald Ox. Thank you, Sarah. Over to you.
Thank you, Cassie, for that lovely welcome. I'm a huge fan of Asia Society and very pleased and proud once again to be doing a story reading for Chinese New Year. Now, I think we all know what year it is. It's the year of the, well, not a cow in a skirt. It's the year of the ox. But as some of you out there will know, this here is the cousin of Oswald Ox. And we're going to be reading Oswald Ox's story today. And her name is Parsnip, and she is prime British beef. And you can see she's wearing a skirt to cover her decency. And that was insisted on by my little girls many years ago. And here we have Renee the rat. And the year of the rat has gone, and the year of the ox is following fast behind. So Parsnip is saying, bye-bye. Goodbye, Ratty. And Ratty's going away. And now we can start our story for the year of the ox. Now, what do I have in my beautiful box of Chinese calendar tales? Let me get it out. So here we are, our beautiful Chinese calendar tales. And I wonder if you know which one is going to be the year of the ox. Let's have a look. We have got the rat here. So it's the one next door. It's the year of Oswald Ox. It's the nice green one with the green tab. And instead of getting it out, I'm just going to pick up my book, which I happen to have here. And here we have, ta-da, The Tale of Oswald Ox, written by me, Sarah Brennan, and illustrated by the wonderful Harry Harrison. Now, this tale is a mystery. It's the mystery of who is stealing the food on the Chinese farm. And I wonder if any of you, as we read this story, if any of you can work out who is stealing the food. Let's start the story. The little hamlet of UC was busy as a farm could be, with noisy ducks and clucking hens and pigs abounding in their pens, and barking dogs and yowling cats to keep away the thieving rats. With paddy fields of rice to sow, and vegetables to plant and grow, and fruit to pick, and bees to tend, and farming tools to make and mend. And not a moment left to spare for any creature living there, except for Oswald Ox. Isn't this a wonderful picture? And you can see all of the animals so busy. And look at the poor farmer's wife. She's being chased by the bees. And look at the pigs there. And I wonder what sort of fruit they are in the tree. It looks like they could almost be, I don't know, oranges. Now let's take a look at Oswald Ox. We'll turn the page. Now, Oswald was the oldest beast to grace a farmyard in the east. Or in the west, the truth be told, for he was 21 years old. And that, in human terms, means more than 10 by 10 plus 44. I wonder if any of you can work out what that is. 10 times 10 plus 44. I wonder what that adds up to. Let's think. 10 by 10 has to be 100 plus 44. Wow! In human terms, Oswald Ox was 144. When he was young, he never shirked. For 7 days a week he worked. He ploughed the fields and pulled the loads. He journeyed over rutted roads. He paced the courtyard round and round until the grain was finely ground. He mowed the grass and picked the flowers. He whisked the flies for hours and hours. Look at him whisking with his tail. He carried water from the well. He even rang the hamlet bell. And always with a willing heart, for oxen always do their part. Now, I wonder if you can see a white bird on this picture. In fact, you'll see that white bird on every page. Does anyone know what she is? You know, if you go to somewhere like Lantau Island, you can see a lot of oxen and you'll always see these white birds. And they are called cattle egret. And you always find cattle egret where you find cattle. And that's because they have a very, very special friendship. You see, when the cow is walking along, he is grinding up the earth with his great big feet. And as he's munching grass, he's pulling up clods. And there's lots of little insects there. And the cattle egret wants to eat those insects. She also wants to eat all the flies that are buzzing around the old ox. So the ox is giving the cattle egret lovely food to eat. But at the same time, the cattle egret is doing a favor to the ox because she's eating all the mosquitoes and the flies that are bugging the ox. So they've got what's called a symbiotic relationship. It's called symbiosis. See if you can say that, symbiotic. And that's why the cattle egret is always best friends with the ox. And this particular cattle egret I have always called Eleanor. So you can see Eleanor, the cattle egret, there on Oswald Ox's back as he's picking the flowers. Let's turn the page. But now his working days were past, his yoke was put away at last, and in the courtyard by the barn he sat and watched the busy farm. And there he wallowed in the mud and sat and slowly chewed his cud, and blinked and stared and blinked and just occasionally winked, as if to say, you never know, one day I might just up and go. But then again, I'd rather not. The weather is too dry and hot. Now, those who've given of their best deserve to end their days in rest, and Oswald in his twilight days had every right to sit and gaze. But jealousy is always rife when someone has an easy life, and erstwhile friends grew quite irate to see him lying there in state. It isn't fair, the chickens clucked. Why should an ox get all the luck? That dozy beast, the rooster crowed, tell him to move on down the road. He's much too fat, the pigs all squealed. He should be working in the field. He's eating all our hard-earned hay, old Oswald heard the donkey bray. And on they'd rant and rail, while Oswald simply swished his tail, and sat and stared and chewed his cud, and quietly wallowed in the mud, and twitched his ears as if to say, it's still a little warm today. The sun is high, the sky is clear. I think I'll spend the morning here. Look at them all in this picture, so angry at poor old Oswald, and there's the sun burning in the distance. And you can see Eleanor, the cattle egret, saying, what are all those silly beasts saying? We'll turn the page. The years went by as Oswald sat observing this and watching that, and seasons passed through sun and rain and snow and back to sun again. And every year the fruit was picked, the corn was cut, the hay was ricked. The vegetables were dried and strung. The summer herbs were bunched and hung. The eggs were gently laid to rest. The birds flew south, the pigs went west. And sometimes once and often twice, the farmer harvested his rice. And every little scrap of food was stored to feed the neighbourhood in cotton bags tied up with yarn, then stacked inside the hamlet barn. Now, if you have a look at this beautiful picture by Harry Harrison, isn't it gorgeous? You can see some funny things. Now, you can see the birds flying south at the top of the picture. Now, in my poem, I say that the pigs went west. Can anyone see the pigs going west in this picture? Now, if you look very carefully, you can see the farmer carrying sausages on a stick into the barn. And those sausages were once pigs. And when we say that the pigs went west, what we mean is that the pigs died and then they were turned into sausages. So if we say, oh, poor Fred went west today, we mean that Fred passed away. And there's the pigs going west. You can also see where the herbs are all bunched on the line, a purple sock. Now, I wonder what that purple sock is doing there. If you have read my other book, The Tale of Chester Choy, about the dragon and Jimmy Lee, there's a purple sock in that. And Harry Harrison, our artist, was being very funny, and he thought the purple sock should come back. And there it is, hanging on the line. So there we are. Can anyone see something strange in the barn door? Maybe down on the bottom right? Maybe that's a clue. We'll turn the page. One cold and frosty winter's day, as Oswald chewed his breakfast hay, he saw the farmer's wife go by, a strange expression in her eye. The second morning off she went, scratching her head in puzzlement. The third, she started looking grim, casting an evil eye at him. The fourth, she made a peevish pout. The fifth, she jumped and stamped about. The sixth, she looked extremely sad. But on the seventh, she got mad. Somebody's stealing all our food. It isn't fair. It isn't good. And when I find out who it is, I'm going to chop him up with this. And here the angry farmer's wife took out her trusty carving knife and struck a very scary pose right in front of Oswald's nose. Did Oswald flinch? Was Oswald scared? No. Oswald simply sat and stared and sat and chewed his cud and quietly wallowed in the mud and swished his tail as if to say, I think it's going to rain today. But then again, you never know. We might just get a little snow. Oh, boy. I'm getting worried for Oswald, aren't you? And look at, there's Eleanor crossing her hands saying, what an unreasonable farmer's wife. And there's that little hen praying, saying, I hope that knife's not for me. I wonder what else is sharpening their knives. Have a look at the picture. We'll turn the page. The farmer's wife devised a plan. She laid a trap to catch her man. And where the bags of food were set, she hung the farmer's fishing net. Then night by night she laid in wait to watch the villain take the bait. But nothing happened. No one came. And yet each day was still the same. Another bag of food was gone. And so the thieving still went on. This is such a mystery. Look at this beautiful picture. This is one of my favourite pictures in the book. Look at the farmer's wife. She's wrapped up in a beautiful, cosy eiderdown. And look, the dog's snoring. And the rooster's snoring. And so the duck, you can see he's fast asleep. And something's going on. Have a little look on the page. Can you see anything going on? Is anything being stolen? Have a little look. Let's turn the page. The farmer summoned all the farm. He called for caution and for calm. Then said, it is my firm belief that one of us must be the thief. Not us, the chickens clucked in rage. At night we're locked up in our cage. Nor us, yelled out the dogs and cats. We're far too busy catching rats. It can't be me, the donkey brayed. I hate the dark. I'm too afraid. Nor us, the ducks quacked loud and clear. Our reedy beds are nowhere near. The pigs let out a noisy cry. We hardly ever leave our sty. Then, in a simultaneous huff, they'd muttered they'd heard quite enough, and heads held high, they stalked away to start their duties for the day. But Oswald simply stared and sat, observing this and hearing that, and swished his tail and flicked his ears, as he had done for years and years, and twitched his nose as if to say, what am I going to do today? It's chilly out, the sky is red, I think I'd better stay in bed. My goodness me, he's always so quiet and calm. This is very much what people born in the year of the ox are like, very quiet and calm and creatures of habit. And look at Oswald. And everyone else is in uproar. They're saying, who is the thief? It must be one of us. Let's turn the page. One dreadful morning on the farm, the rooster raised a loud alarm. Due to unprecedented theft, our stores are gone. There's nothing left. No single speck, no tiny grain. This farm is going down the drain. And saying so, he flapped away to find a better place to stay. Then, one by one, each farmyard beast packed up his bags and headed east. Till suddenly the farm was bare, with not a creature living there, except the farmer and his brood, with not a single scrap of food, and Oswald sitting in the mud, quietly chewing on his cud. And look at this beautiful picture by Harry Harrison. And can you see even the bees have packed their bags and they're flying away? The farmer's wife, with features grim, turned to the ox and glared at him. She said, "It is my firm belief that Oswald is our farmyard thief. He never spoke, he never cared, he only leered at us and stared. He's far too knowing for my taste. I'll see he doesn't go to waste." She pinched his rump and slapped his thigh, while Oswald merely blinked his eye. Then off she went to fetch her knife to finish off poor Oswald's life. Let's turn the page. The farmer sadly shook his head. "It is a shame she wants you dead. She has her worries and her fears, but I've known you for years and years. I'm sure you didn't steal our food. You're much too sensible and good." Then, whispering into Oswald's ear, he said, "You'd best get out of here." Did Oswald sit? Did Oswald stare? Or did that ox get out of there? Oswald gave a mighty wheeze. He slowly clambered to his knees. He uttered an enormous grunt, then gingerly stood up in front. He gave a wobble and a sway, then rose and quietly walked away, as if to say, "I'm tired and old. The weather out is far too cold. But then again, it's far too hot sitting in someone's dinner pot." Poor old Oswald. Off he goes, and look at the sad farmer and the sad little boy. And Eleanor Egret, she has packed her bags as well. And someone is waving goodbye. Let's look at the next page. The farmer watched his old friend go, wending his way so proud and slow, past the barn where he'd always slept, past the shed where the tools were kept, past the coop where the hens had laid, past the trough where the donkey'd brayed, past the sty where the pigs had squealed, past the duck pond and past the field, sad, forsaken and all alone, leaving the only home he'd known. The farmer's wife came rushing out, waving her carving knife about. "Where is that rotten thief?" she cried. "I'm going to have his filthy hide." But Oswald was no longer there. She gnashed her teeth. She tore her hair. She hit the farmer on the head and yelled she'd have his hide instead. Then, racing down the farmyard track, she vowed to drag the old ox back. My goodness. Now, you can see the farmer's wife chasing poor Oswald and the poor farmer holding his head. But there's something very funny on this page. Have a look at the pond. On the pond, you will find a frog. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the only frog that you will ever find in winter on a lily pad. And it's because he's wearing a nice woolly scarf. This is a little story between me and the artist, Harry Harrison, where Harry drew a frog in winter. And I said, "Harry, you can't have a frog in winter." And he said, "Oh, yes, I can." And guess what he did? He put a scarf around his neck. Isn't that funny? Let's turn the page. Did Oswald run? Did Oswald flee? No. Oswald stopped beside a tree and stood and stared and stared and stood and nibbled at its gnarled old wood. and sniffed the air and pawed the mud and very slowly chewed his cud and flicked his ears from left to right and swished his tail with all his might, then winked his eye as if to say, perhaps there is another way. He whacked his tail against a bowl. It opened an enormous hole. He gave the hole another clout, and all the missing food fell out. The vegetables, the herbs, the spice, the honeycomb, the fragrant rice, the beans, the pork, the eggs, the grain, tumbling down like summer rain. So that's where all the food has been. Look at that. He's solved the mystery of the missing food. And that's what people born in the year of the ox do. They are very good at solving problems. But the big question is, who has been stealing the food? Let's turn the page. Seconds later, in half a trice, the thieving feet of 100 mice scurried away across the plain, never to rob the farm again. Now look at all those mice. And you can even see mice with chef's hats on. And a little bit later, when we get to the end of the story, what I want to do is just quickly flip back through the pages, because guess what you're going to find? The mystery had clues right through the story. On every page, you can find a thieving mouse with a hat on, maybe a chef's hat, or maybe with a knife, and he's taking all of the stores away. So the clues were there right in front of us all along. The farmer hugged his happy wife. She took out her trusty carving knife and chopped the herbs that smelled so sweet into a truly scrumptious treat, especially for Oswald Ox. So now they're the best of friends. Look at them, they're besties. You can see her giving him a hug, and Eleanor's saying, ha, this story is a happy ending. Let's turn the page. The little hamlet of UC was soon as busy as can be, with noisy ducks and clucking hens hatching their eggs out yet again, and piglets squealing in their sty, and pups and kittens prancing by, and paddy fields to plough and sow, and vegetables and herbs to grow, and twittering birds and buzzing bees flitting around the blossom trees. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's springtime. And look, everyone is happy, and there's all these beautiful little babies, even a baby bird and a baby bee. And look at those kittens, but uh-oh, what are those kittens chasing? I think they're chasing baby rats, actually. I wonder what's happened to the mice, though. Let's look at the last page. And Oswald, sitting in the mud, chewing his extra tasty cud, sitting and staring all day long, watching the farmyard's busy throng, blinking his eyes as if to say, my word, it's lovely out today. I might get up and take a stroll, or sniff a tree, or whack a bowl. But if I really have to choose, I think I'll just stay here and snooze. And that's the end of the story. And can you see on the picture? Look at the little mouse. The mice are back. There's a little mouse with a periscope. He's in the mud. So maybe the mice never really left the farm, or maybe they've come creeping back. And let's just take a quick look back through the pages. If we just look carefully back through the pages, you can find the thieving mice on every page. Let's just flick back through. And if you look at the cursor, you can see the thieving mouse. They've been there all along. Sometimes they're getting ready for dinner, and sometimes they're waving to the ox. And then other times they're putting on their napkins around their chins. And then you can see one in a chef's hat shrugging, saying it wasn't me who stole the food. Now, if you look at the picture of the farmer's wife in the eiderdown in the barn, you can see a hook, and that was the thieving mice stealing another bag of grain. And then you can see mice sharpening their knives, and you can see them with cooking ladles and spoons. They've been there all along, these naughty little mice. So, isn't that fun? And one last picture at the very back, you can see a man. And this man is painting something with a paintbrush. I wonder if you can see who that is. Of course, it's Harry Harrison, who did the fabulous illustrations in this book. So I just want to say a big thank you to Harry Harrison for his beautiful illustrations. Well, that's it then for the year of the ox. But I just want to let you know that if you are an ox person, that's a very good person indeed, because ox people, just like Oswald, they're wise and they're calm and they solve problems. And people sometimes underestimate them. Sometimes they think they're very quiet. They don't do much. They're creatures of habit. But underneath, an ox is thinking all the time. So I wish you all the happiest year of the ox. And if you'd like to buy my beautiful book, you can do so on Asia Society's sales, on the website, on their sales page. So thank you, everybody, and I'll see you again next year. Bye. Oh, Oswald wants to say bye-bye. Not Oswald, Parsnip. She's saying bye-bye, bye-bye.